Good morning, everybody, ladies and gentlemen, and in particular, thank you, Reson, for inviting us both here to the actual conference. I've just come up from Chile in South America, so it's really great to be here and to meet a lot of you people. It's a very, very interesting conference so far. Today, we're actually going to talk about opening new waters. The world we know may not be the world that we find unless we find out. It's something that I actually wrote for one of the papers which I was actually asked to present with some of our work in the actual IHO and with the HCA. My name's Stephen Wilkins. I'm a merchant sailor, but I've been sailing for all of my life, and for the last 10 years I've been doing expeditions down to Antarctica and South Georgia in the actual south. I'm the owner of Explore, and certainly for 10 years the South has shown us some very, very interesting things.
Good morning, everybody. First of all, sorry for my English level. It's not my mother language, but I try to do the best that I can. My name is Johan Bouler. I'm an hydrographer category B. I work for French Hydrographic Office since 2008, and I joined the team to accreditate the survey. And for many thanks from Reson and Teledyne to invite me. I'm very pleased to be here.
So the subject that we're actually talking about today is surveying in one of the most remote places of the world, which of course is Antarctica. And Antarctica is a very, very challenging place, and the photo which we've got here is of course on a very nice day in Antarctica. It's not always like that, but it's an interesting project which we need to give you a little bit of background on. So today with the presentation, what we're actually going to talk about is obviously what is the actual hydrographic situation there in Antarctica, because it is quite an interesting and very, very special region of the world. We're going to talk about the project, why we did the project, and of course the team, the technology that we used and how we went about doing the actual survey. Then of course post-production and the results from the post-production. And then we'll have a brief look at the future of this type of surveying and why we did it in this particular way. We will have question time, obviously, at the end. So the Antarctic hydrographic situation. Antarctica, because of its location, is quite a unique location in that it only has, it doesn't actually have anybody who actually owns the continent itself. There are a lot of people who have an interest in Antarctica, but Antarctica as a continent is the only place on the world which is not owned by anybody. And that creates quite some interesting aspects. But let's have a first look. These are official IHO statistics on this, but it's actually just slightly under 10% of the waters of the world which are actually surveyed to modern standards. And I'm only talking up to the accuracy of up to 1 minute. So only 10%, just less than it, are actually surveyed. And that's what the IHO actually says about it. So when you look at the world is actually covered by 71% of actually water, when we look at it, that only 10% is done, that actually makes you ask some questions. But when we look at Antarctica, when you look at the Antarctic coastline, only 2% up to the 200-metre depth contour line has actually been surveyed. Now, that's not a lot in anybody's language. So when you look at the other 98%, there's still a huge amount of work to actually be done down there. But in reality, where the majority of ships actually go in Antarctica, 90% actually go to the Antarctic Peninsula. And this particular area is of keen interest. One, because of its accessibility. There is a lot of research stations, so there's a lot of government stations and science stations which are located on the Antarctic Peninsula. So the majority of shipping actually goes there. So let's have a look at the actual area that we're talking about. So the Antarctic Peninsula, which is the extension from the Andes from South America, which comes down and prominently sticks up there into the actual Southern Ocean. This particular area and the actual charting which has been done there over the years, and keep in mind that charting in these regions first really started in the late 1700s. But where we actually sit today, even though with this particular diagram, the area in red is what is deemed, and it's an estimation, is around about 60 to 70% of the peninsula, which is generally accessible, has actually been surveyed in some form I'm not saying that it's well surveyed, I'm just saying that there is some information there. But being that Antarctica is international and that no country actually is responsible for it, this throws quite an interesting dilemma, because there's a lot of stakeholders, there's a lot of countries who have an interest in the whole of Antarctica, but no one country is actually responsible. So when it comes to surveying, who actually puts the hat on and says, I am responsible for this? This is the big question mark. But for the Antarctic Peninsula, there's 3 countries who actually claim this territory, and that's Chile, that's Argentina, and that's the United Kingdom. So they all 3 claim this particular section of the peninsula. So in theory, they are the 3 caretakers. It's quite interesting when you look at Antarctica, because with the whole of the actual continent, if you put all the countries' claims who claim territories in Antarctica, it actually adds up to 200%. So somebody is not quite as good of a mathematician as our last speaker. But anyway, the problem is, of course, being that it's Antarctica, and any country that is going to send one of their hydrographic ships in there, it is a big, big project. It normally gets planned 2 years out. There's a lot of people, there's a lot of research which goes behind it, because everybody is worried about sending a vessel in particular into Antarctica. So the planning time is huge and the costs are absolutely enormous. I spent some time with my contacts at the Australian Hydrographic Office, and to give you an example, they did a survey down in Australian Antarctic territories a few years ago. The area that they wanted to survey, and it was just a normal standard survey, it wasn't like a special order or anything like that, 13 square nautical miles that they actually did on the actual survey. By the time that they finished the actual job and completed it and brought it to chart production, right, the charge out on that was $1.5 million for 13 square nautical miles, which is not a big area, as we all know. So who actually needs good charts in Antarctica? Myself and my organisation Explore, we're part of IATO. I've been involved with IATO for over 10 years, or since I first have been going down to Antarctica. And they represent the tourist industry which is involved in Antarctica, land and sea. IATO, we have within our membership, that represents 40 ships and also another further 15 small vessels which do small, if you want to call it extreme or exotic expeditions into Antarctica, which of course my company is one of those. So we've got 40 ships and then 15. But the reality is there's a huge amount of other vessels which actually go down there as well. There's Navy, there's research, there's supply vessels, there's government vessels, and of course there's fishing vessels which actually go down there as well. So there's a lot of people who go into these areas, and they all need, or they all would like, better charts, good charts. It's very, very easy, especially when you're in a, if you want to call it a civilized part of the world as a mariner, where there's good charts, and then you can just look at your chart plotter and you can just navigate with relative ease, knowing that there's a good reliability factor there. Down in the south, you use very, very different skills, and these skills is what any mariner who goes down there really, really sharpens your senses, because everything that you see on the chart is not necessarily, or in theory it's there, but there's a lot of other factors which actually take you away from the fact that what you're actually seeing is not actually quite correct. So a number of years ago, about 14 years ago, the International Hydrographic Office, the IHO, decided to actually do a concerted effort and join the forces of all signatory members of the Antarctic Treaty Commission that actually had a hydrographic office, because they said, well, look, we've got issues down here. We want to improve charting, but no one country is responsible for it, so let's actually do a combined effort. So they formed the HCA, the Hydrographic Council of Antarctica, and it's part of the IHO. And every year they meet and they try to decide and plan, work out what the prioritisation of surveys are, and they also try to allocate teams or forces and vessels from different nations to try and tackle certain areas. In theory, it's a fantastic concept. The reality is they do a good job. However, the bureaucracy which is behind government or military hydrographic officers to try and get them to actually work together from all the different nations, the languages, beliefs and egos, is quite a complex mix, and it is certainly quite complex, it is. IATO, we've been involved with the IHO and the HCA for many, many years, and I've been representing IATO at all of the HCA meetings for a number of years now. I head up the hydrographic working group for IATO because we're really keen as an actual industry to try and move things forward and to actually get an improved charting in these regions. So let's have a look at some of the charts, because before you look at what we've done, it's important that you actually see what the reality is. Here's on a title block of a current chart, and it clearly says unsurveyed areas, right? Uncharted dangers may exist, particularly within 100 fathoms. Now, this is a current chart, a fathoms chart, and that's what we currently use, okay? Mariners should navigate with extreme caution. Here's another one, satellite-derived positions, again on a current tidal block, may be significant to navigation. Guess what? I know locations where we've got islands which are out by 1 nautical miles north or south, and up to half a nautical mile east or west from where they are on the position. When you use a lot of even the current actual electronic charts down there, your vessel track line goes straight over the actual land, and it's everywhere. It's all over the place. It's amazing. Here's a source data block from one of our charts. I know it's a little bit small, you might be able to see it, but anyway, section C, which represents over 60% of this particular charted area. Section C, what does it say for classification C? Miscellaneous lines of soundings. And it's very, very miscellaneous. Okay, again, here's another example of a current navigation chart in Antarctica. It's black and white, and we all remember what a black and white chart is. It's fathoms, right? And this is current. And this particular insert, which you actually see there in purple, is another additional chart, but it sits on the actual other scale chart, and that's how it's actually presented on the chart down there. And that's what we've got to actually work with. That's what's available. Let's have a look at one of the better ones. Now, this is great. This is a current, and this is probably one of the best navigation charts down there. This is a British Admiralty BA 446 chart. And if you actually have a look, and maybe Johan, you can just point out, most of you can probably actually see on it, written all over the chart, unsurveyed, see note, unsurveyed, see note, unsurveyed, see note. It's written all over the chart. Now, as much as most of the major passageways and the major channels, because of course when they're prioritising surveys, they just want to get vessels in and they want to get vessels out. They just want to get into a station and get them back out again. So major channels, of course, they've had concentrations over the years, but there's a huge amount of areas which are still missing a huge amount of actual data, even in the best surveyed area of the actual peninsula. But of course, since day one, since the 1800s, the whalers and the sealers and explorers which went down there, when there are no charts, what do? You draw your own. For 10 years, and I've got a folder which is so thick, right? And in each page is a new drawing of a new anchorage, a new location, and we go out there with our zodiacs and we take hand depth sounders. I even remember when I first started doing it, I started actually doing it with a lead line, and that's only 10 years ago. And we would actually find areas which on a coastline, on an actual chart, it doesn't show anything. But there's maybe a great bay, a great anchorage, a really safe spot that you can actually get into. And we have a huge amount of fun just going down there, and finding these new places, and we literally go out there and draw them. We take bearings, we take our GPSs, right, and we plot these out and we draw them as accurately as we can. Get up on a mountain top and take a photo down so you've got an aerial shot, and guess what? It's better than nothing. So, let's just rock and roll. We're just going to give you a short little video for a few minutes and give you a bit of an idea of what we've done on the project.
Hey, ma'am, it's not gonna work. It has nothing to do with you. I'm sorry. It's me. The thing is, I'm picky. I'm picky. And all the time I drive him crazy. I drive him crazy cause I'm sexy. They call me sexy cause I'm hot. Catch my note. Don't you know I am so hot cause I am picky. Scream my name, honey, honey, ho, that's the goal. Make you wonder why I'm cold and distant. I'm cold and distant. Yes, I siempre dices lo mismo. Lo mismo, scheiße, I am, bim bam bam. I fall down and shame again on me, cause you are laughing with your friends about me. Where the comportamiento? I'm picky, you're freaking, no daring model. When a woman consistent, too persistent, I'm cold and distant. Remember me, and all the girls I drive him crazy. I drive him crazy cause I'm lazy. I don't give a damn, you know I'm fucking lazy. I don't give a damn. I'm picky cause I'm all alone. And baby I'm alone cause I'm a picky one. I got a lot of girls waiting for me not to call. Another Sunday morning on my own. Maybe I'm too good for you, or maybe you don't know me, cause you know that I got a lot of comics to read on the phone. Good looking you and I could get along.
Talk to me, walk with me. Talk to me, walk with me. Talk to me, walk with me. Talk to me, you're picky. I'm picky. I drive them all crazy. I drive them all crazy. You know that I'm
I'm picky cause I'm all alone. And baby I'm alone cause I'm a picky one. I got a lot of girls waiting for me not to call. Another Sunday morning on my own.
So let's just have a look at the actual project itself. It's interesting because this particular project is something that I started about a couple of years ago wanting to actually do, because I soon realised after my research into looking into hydrographic methodology and technology that multi-beam was the way to go. If you want to cover a large area, you want to do it accurately, you want to do it fast, and especially with some of the current gear which is actually out there in the market, multi-beam was definitely a way to go. But the problem is that I started actually talking through a friend of mine with another actually technology company. I won't actually say, it doesn't really matter who it was. But anyway, for 10 months I talked with the CEO to convince him to get them to loan me, because I don't have the money for it. I'm just a small one-man operation, effectively. I have my crew, but we're a very small business. But I wanted to actually survey with a multi-beam. So for 10 months I negotiated with them, gave them all the answers, told them I'd get the permits, proved that I could actually do that, gave them all the reasons. And he said, Stephen, I like the idea. Going to pass it to the head of hydrography. See what he says. If he gives it the thumbs up, you've got the gear. I'm going, yes, this is going to be fantastic. This is 12 months ago. A week later, I received an email. And the guy said to me, he said, Stephen, this is a joke. What do you mean? You want to put a multi-beam on a sailing boat and go to Antarctica and do a survey? He threw it out the window. Unbelievable. I was totally gutted and devastated. Anyway, I was up in Europe last year when that happened, when I received the email. I forgot about it and I thought, well, get on with things. Went to the HCA meeting in Uruguay last year and then went back to explore to get it ready for the season. I thought, well, that's forgotten now. Can't do anything there. A week before we left Valdivia, I by chance met a nice Chilean guy, a guy called Fernando, and he was a commercial diver, but he also did some survey work, some pipe inspection work and everything there in Chile. Within half an hour talking to him, I realised that he really had some survey gear. And I said, you've got what? He said, oh, I've got this kind of like this multi-beam. I said, what sort? He said, oh, CBAT 7125. I said, do you want to go to Antarctica? Anyway, cutting a long story short, he did want to go to Antarctica and he did want a challenge. And so for us, which was all voluntary, because we didn't get paid for this project, not 1 cent. It actually cost a lot of money. But we all volunteered our time, we volunteered the boat, we volunteered our equipment, and we put this together. So all of a sudden, there we are, I'm just about to leave Valdivia, and I've got 7 weeks to make this happen. And I'm not a hydrographer, and I've never had a multi-beam on my sailing boat before. So, of course, when there's no time, you just have to make it, and we did. We had to get on with it, and luckily we had a little bit of time en route, on passage from Valdivia down to the south. But we all said, what the heck, let's do it, let's give it a go. So, of course, myself, there's Fernando from Skyring Marine in Chile, who's supplied, he's a hydrographic technician and diver. He supplied all the technical equipment. And of course, Shom, because I put a call out to everybody they knew in the hydrographic industry, and I'm talking about the government departments, the UK, Australia, New Zealand Hydrographic Office, Chilean Hydrographic Office, and also to Shom in France, asking them, said, guys, I need a hydrographer. I've got the gear, I've got the boat, but I need a certified hydrographer to go with us to certify this project. And luckily, France came back and let Johan actually take time off work because France's interest in this type of thing was to actually look at different ways of going into remote locations. And as we all know, France has got a lot of remote locations in the world, hence why they encouraged Johan to actually do the project. So we left from Valdivia in Chile on the west coast and headed down to Punta Arenas. We had a lot of logistics and a lot of things to actually decide on. We hadn't actually decided at this particular point how we were going to actually mount the multi-beam. I knew that there was two choices, as either on the side or as on the bow. I'd looked at some photographs from a few things from the internet or anything, but I certainly hadn't actually made one before. So we had a lot to think about. So we had the hydrographer. By the time that we got to Punta Arenas, Shom had confirmed that we had a hydrographer. I didn't know quite how we were going to actually mount it, but we also had the logistics of the gear. The sonar equipment was in Chile, and we needed it in Argentina. Now, in South America, it's a very civilized part of the world, but there's a lot of complications when you're talking about getting technical and science equipment from one country to another. You can get held up in a lot of red tapes for months. So we had to actually be, with stealth, actually look at actually secretly actually getting all the multi-beam equipment from Chile into Argentina. And we did that through another friend of mine who works as the operations manager for a small cruise ship company in Chile. And we secretly got them to actually get it into Argentina for us. Okay, so let's have a look. We got the actual mounting frame. We got where the multi-beam transducer was going to be mounted. We got that to the actual boat, which actually happened there in Punta Arenas, in the Straits of Magellan. As soon as we got it on board, we had an expedition at that time, a 2-week expedition, but at least I had the actual mounting bracket to actually work with. And it didn't take long for me to actually look at when we got down to one of the actual anchorages. This is buried right in the heart of Terra del Fuego, totally remote, but really nice, quiet little spot. And myself and the crew, we got out with the Zodiac, a whole lot of measuring sticks and rulers and tape measures and everything like that, because I'd looked at the way that Explore moves through the water. And with 38 tons, so it's not a lightweight plastic fiberglass boat, so she's got a lovely movement through the water. But the best place for us to mount the multi-beam, definitely on the bow. So away we went. We get on with the actual design of the actual system and how we're going to actually mount it. We then we continued down to Ushuaia in Argentina in the Beagle Channel, and we had 4 days. From my drawings, which were taken from the Zodiac, we had 4 days to actually fabricate the whole system on how we're going to mount it on board the boat and to make sure that it actually fitted. So luckily I had a team down there, some really nice local Argentinian guys, and I said, look, this is really important. We've got 4 days, we've got to make it actually happen. And we did. And by the time that we had the gears secretly brought into Argentina, we had it all mounted and we pre-tested everything in the Bay of Ushuaia there before we actually left for Antarctica. So everything was on and away we actually went. This is just about the end to where I get to, but now we're in Argentina, Beagle Channel, and guess what? You've got the Drake's Passage. Now, I don't know whether any of you have heard about Drake's Passage or Cape Horn. It's a nice part of the world. On good sunny days, it's quite lovely, quite flat and calm. But for probably 95% of the year, it's not really quite like that. So it's a good challenge, and it's an interesting stretch of water, which I've done many, many times. But we had a 4-day voyage from Ushuaia over to the actual peninsula before the survey could start. What were our goals of the survey? As we've talked about, mount a multi-beam on a sailing boat and do it so that we could actually meet IHO standards. You can't just have this multi-beam flopping around on the front of your boat, right, and expect to actually get quality data if it wasn't mounted rigidly. We wanted to prove that we could turn data around, that we could collect data and do a fast turnaround of the data so that we could prove that it could get back to actual ships. Keep in mind, it's normally 7 to 12 years from a survey being done in Antarctica before a mariner needs to get it. Well, I wanted to actually prove that you could get high quality data and get it back onto a ship fast. So let's have a look at the survey areas. We've got down to the peninsula, and this is where I'm going to hand over to actually Johan, but we selected 4 areas, 4 different areas. We didn't want to just do one big block survey and say we've done a survey. We wanted to select different locations which have got different topographic features of the actual seafloor to actually show that we could actually really get quite creative and we could go into some tricky places, plus major shipping channels as well. Just going to pass over to Johan because now he's going to explain what happens on technology and the survey side.
Thank you, Stefan. Okay. If hasn't been surveyed, there is no boundaries. Just do it. Oh. So we'll speak about just the mounting frame in the first slide of the gear. And we can see on this slide that there is 2 side arms with maintained with ropes in Kevlar and 4 Kevlar ropes to maintain the system and prevent twist. So you have 2 points of view of the mounting frame. This is our control center, very modern, a lot of space, and very, very cool post control. And on your left, there is a picture just for show you that there is some turbulence, but not under the multi-beam, because the multi-beam was on 0.7 meters below the water, the sea level. So the gear, of course, we use a Reason Seabed 7125, and we use 2 TSS motion sensor, DMS-05. And all the gear were powered by an Honda to be clear with the electric signal and perfect electric signal. This is the bracket with the receiver, the projector, and also the motion sensor, but also SVP 770, which is protected by the shield for ice and iceberg too. For concerning and about the positioning and navigation, we use an hemisphere AR3020 with a Marine Star correction. And you can see that the antenna of hemisphere was put on the top of the mount, just to be sure that all the offset is in zero for positioning. And about the heading, we use a Thales antenna 3011. As you can see on the picture, is very fixed with many ropes, because the problem with heading is a yaw angular offset. You need to be very careful about this point. So we fix as many as we can with many ropes as the antenna. So this is the SVP just for beam forming and protect him by the shield, a shield in front of the bracket. Just the SVP. And we have also an AML for real-time SVP. To be sure that the beam transmission on the water is good, we make as much as possible sound profile. Begin, middle, and the end. All the time we put in PDS 2000 the real time, the real sound speed. Also, there is tide. Tide is very important. So, because of the transport and difficult and the short time, I need to find a solution to bring with me a tide gauge. So I choose to use a NKE 3 in case of there is one or doesn't work. But this is not very accurate tide gauge, but it's enough for what we have to do. This is a 300 meters one. So that's why we need to do some calculation about the offset of each NKE to match and to compare with the predictable tide in blue tide. This is a predictable tide of UKHO. So you need to find the offset of each NKE with a manual measurement between the surface and the tide gauge. So we need to improve too and to develop our mind to find solution about samples of nature of bottom. And we have a mini ROV. This is a GoPro, and we put on the water and to make some samples of and determine nature of bottom. But also I can pick up in my bag a grabber, a big grabber. So we need to find solution. Integration setup is interesting because in hydrography, the first of things to think is to find to determine our reference point. So we choose the sea level and on the mount, and this is the XYZ sign convention PDS 2000. And as you can see, depending of the sign convention, we have all the lever arms of motion sensor projector, receiver also, and we can see before on the previous slides hemisphere antenna, which is the position offset was 0. The sea level was also the reference point. Okay, this is the overall presentation of the system. Everybody knows this is a unit center in pink pink boxes. This is a unit center with multi-beam and S7K center and PDS 2000. All is in communication and link with the green boxes, which is the gear, like motion sensor, positioning, sound velocity, and whole sound velocity too. And in red boxes, this is the raw data, or the data that you can export from S7K Center or PDS 2000. This is a watercolor for example, in acoustic data or carries post-processing. Okay, this is important to do much as possible calibration and patch test, because we want to be sure that all the angular offset doesn't move, but we are not very sure that all the systems are very good fixed. So we need to proceed a lot of calibration. So we've made 3 patches test just before the main surveys that we have planned on Enterprise, Polar Crow, and Off-Guard Island. But in red boxes, we can see that the U-angle, which is the heading antenna, move a little bit between the start and the end. So it was necessary to do this patch test. Okay, before each survey, we plan, and depending of what of OHA recommendation in S44, order 1 or order 2, we need to make a briefing and to plan our survey. So depending of the swaths of the coverage, we need to plan regular and cross rails, just to be sure that the quality control and all the coverage overlap all the area. So depending on iceberg and ice too, sometimes it's a little bit smoothie rails, but yes. Oh yeah, now you can see our first survey in a nice place, very nice place. This is Enterprise Island with famous wreck is Govern, and this is a place that we have done our first survey. It was the day where we have to plan our communication, because my level in English is not so good, and they don't have any screen on the deck for steer the rail. So we need to check in VHF all the time. And yes, it was a very tricky area, and behind my computer was a little bit fear sometimes, because in red colors this is very tricky and shallow water. And just before this, we've made 1 and 2 hours patches test to be sure that we have the very strong solution on each angular offset. So this is our first survey.
Okay, coming on to one of our next areas in one of the main shipping channels, which is in the Gerlache Strait. There was a PA which has been on the chart for probably about 40 or 50 years and never actually confirmed. So a PA being a position approximate, quite a dangerous rocky shoal. We couldn't actually go right over the top of it because we measured it at 2.7 metres, but actually I know from some other friends who have actually touched rock there, it's around about 1.6, 1.8 metres. So it's actually, and this is right on the edge of a really big main shipping area. As soon as we actually got the accurate position on this, I actually sent a notices to mariners report back to UK Hydro, and they were actually able to get that out there in the next actual week to all mariners down there. So it's quite interesting that even though we were looking to do survey stuff, any data down there, any accurate data is really quite a valuable thing.
As another safety zones, a couple of years ago, a cruise ship named Ushuaia touched the seafloor here and needs to evacuate all the passengers with a tug and come from Argentina. So, as you can see, we need to survey all the important places. And on this photo, you can see iceberg. Iceberg is a good road sign because when you see the tide line above the sea level, you can see that the iceberg is touched at the ground. So this is a danger area.
Okay, I'm just going to keep on moving. I know you've seen some of these images from the actual video. Peltier Channel was a very important area. Again, very popular from a historic and also from a wildlife location. But generally speaking, most ships can't get through there. Chile was planning on actually doing a single beam survey in the actual channel. But unfortunately, I found that information out 2 days after we'd done a multi-beam survey, which took us 6 days. To do a single beam survey in this area probably would have taken them a month.
This is Charcot, a very famous French place because it was in first expedition in beginning of the last century. So I was very excited to do these boxes. And in this box we made a 1B order in S44. So this is the iceberg spikes too, just for show you that post-processing was very fastidious because I need to make the difference between an obstruction and an iceberg, so I have to take a lot of target, which a lot of iceberg.
Okay, here's another one. I think just proving the actual point that the thing when we're dealing with areas which are, when you've only got white paper, if you've got white paper, then any data is good data. For us to be able to actually say that even our passage data was still even meeting, order 2, it just meant that all of this stuff can now go on to actual new navigation charts.
Another passage data between Hofgaard and Petermann, just for show you that it's sometimes very deep, sometimes very shallow, like underground. There is a lot of mountain, but underwater is the same.
Yeah, the topography is amazing down there because in Antarctica and in the peninsula, it's like being on the Swiss Alps. The mountains go up so high, you can put your bow right onto an actual rock face and see 2,500 meters above you. But the seafloor actually does it. So it's a really, really tricky area. There's plenty of times that you really, flying by the seat of your pants. But if you take it slowly and carefully, it's amazing where you can get around. But to use a multi-beam and to actually see this whole world underwater actually opening up was incredible.
So it's time for post-production. Just ask, okay, Sean were very excited about this project and give me all the tools and the key software for working on post-processing and give me time that I need during the last 4 months, work on my ship and yes, it's good results. We will see. Okay, first we need to check tide. Tide is very complicated with NKE because it's not so accurate. So the first step is to smooth the tide with MATLAB software mathematics. And the second step is to download the real tide for the closest reference port, which is Vernadsky Ukraine station. So the third step is to match our real tide and the real tide from Vernadsky to determine our zero level to reduce all the soundings. Of course, horizontal checking for positioning is very important too. So we need to find a solution, and again. Because there is not an obstruction with the perfect known position, so we need to find solutions. So a radar reflector was put on the water, linked with a rope and a bow on the surface. Yes. And after, make just a proceed the rails around. Can you get? Yes, please just. we proceed the rail around the obstruction, the radar reflector, just for checking all the extreme beam as much as possible on the head of a radar reflector, just for have our cloud points. This is cloud points of each beams, extreme beams, and we can see that horizontal checking was compatible with order 1B for S44. Yes, another. We have vertical checking to check to be sure that the survey is perfect in vertical and horizontal. So we need to check regular and cross rails in 60 degrees port and 60 degrees starboard.
Then obviously the final report. Shom gave Johan the chance to do all the post-production and to do the final reports. Quite a lengthy document and very impressive to look at. But the question is that in doing a project like this, what do you do with the data? The reality is that there's so many vessels which have the capabilities and do actually collect data, but does it ever go into navigation charts? The reality is that in the last 3 decades, the number within member states of IHO, offshore survey vessels has declined by 35% and coastal vessels has declined by 34%. The quality, even though the technology is there, the amount of data going into hydrographic offices to produce charts has not actually gone up whatsoever. It's actually on the decline and budgets are going down more and more. So by doing this project, what I felt was the most valuable thing is not to sit on the data, not to keep it to myself, but to present it to the IHO. So I went to Monaco in June for World Hydrographic Day and presented Robert Ward with the completed data package, which we did from the actual survey project. That, of course, has gone out to UK Hydrographic Office, to Chile, and also to Argentinian hydrographic offices for their use in chart production in the future. So the reality is that what we did actually stretch all the rules, because a lot of people said that we couldn't do it, but we also had a huge amount of support from people who were encouraging on what we were actually doing. Because if it can be done, if you can think about it, if you can work through the logistics, and if you can use your mind and think creatively, it's amazing what you can do. Yes, we did meet S44. We got, orders 1B and category 2 on all of the actual data. Not bad for a little sailing boat, and it certainly didn't cost $1.5 million for the 15 square nautical miles, which we actually did. So the chart products, there's got 3 examples here, which I'll just quickly flick through. We hope to actually have these charts actually on vessels which are going down to the Antarctic for this next season. So there was the first one there, the second one here for Peltier Channel, and also the third one there for Port Charcot. So it's going to be a real pleasure to be able to actually let some of the captains on all the actual ships and also small vessels actually use some of these and give them a little bit of extra help, because anyone who goes down there, they're good mariners. It's amazing what they actually do. So sonar technology and what Reson's got there with the 7125, certainly we're all very, very impressed with the actual. It does set new dimensions and standards and accuracies. I mean, hydrography has come a huge, huge way in 200 years. In the 1800s, maybe they collected 1 kilobyte of data. In the early 1900s, maybe there was 1 megabyte of data. Daily now, we're collecting terabytes of data. Let's put it in perspective. We've come a huge way and the technology is just absolutely amazing. But hydrography is at millimetric accuracy. We've heard from the other speakers like yesterday and talking about, right down to centimetres and everything. It's incredible. But for us as mariners, we just want metres under our keel. It's nothing fancy. Right? We just want meters. We don't want centimetres. We don't want millimetres. And the amount of data that is actually out there and which is getting produced, because whilst hydrographic officers and their ships are getting smaller, their budgets are getting cut year after year after year, the private sector is rapidly taking on new technology and doing amazing things. But what's happening to all of your data? It's a shame it doesn't actually go into chart production. But hydrography for all of us, it doesn't matter who you are, whether you're a government office, whether you're a private sector, hydrography is about discovery. What we did was about discovery in a really tough place, right? But you guys, everybody out there, when you're crossing a piece of chart and it hasn't been well surveyed, every piece of data, every data point that you're collecting is valuable and you are actually discovering. Because hydrography is exciting. It really is, to me, quite a sexy science. The future? Well, The future, it's amazing. I want to actually keep on doing remote hydrographic survey work in unusual places as well, because that's my life. I spend my time, my life in remote places. But for all of us here, in the actual room, there's one encouraging thing. You're all going to still be employed because there's 90% of the world still to go.